Right now, the message you sent this morning, the financial transaction you made this afternoon, the video call you had last week, all of it traveled through a physical cable on the floor of the ocean, not a satellite, not the cloud, a cable about the width of a human fist, sitting unprotected on the bottom of the sea. There are approximately 400 submarine cables on the floor of the world's oceans. Together, they carry approximately 99% of all international internet traffic. Not most of it, 99% of it. The satellites that most people think carry internet traffic account for less than 1%. This network is the nervous system of the modern global economy, and most people have never heard of it. Every credit card transaction between continents, every international wire transfer, every email sent across an ocean, every video call between countries.
The New York Stock Exchange communicating with the London Stock Exchange, American military communications with bases overseas, intelligence data moving between allies, all of it, through cables that have no armed guards, through cables that have no air cover, through cables that any country with a submarine can cut in minutes. So let's go down to the cables, to the routes, to the vulnerabilities that every intelligence agency in the world already knows about. The cables run along the ocean floor following routes determined by depth, geology, and the locations of the cities they connect. The Atlantic has dense coverage, the Pacific has fewer cables crossing greater distances. The Indian Ocean is the most vulnerable, fewer cables, more critical choke points. Who owns them? Historically, telecom companies. British Telecom, AT&T, NTT. Increasingly, tech companies. Google owns or co-owns more than a dozen cables. Meta owns several. Amazon is building its own network. And China. Chinese state-linked companies are building cables that connect China to Africa, to Southeast Asia, to the Middle East, and increasingly to Europe, parallel to the Western network. Two internets, one ocean. In 2022, NATO published an assessment noting that Russian military vessels had been observed conducting what appeared to be systematic surveys of undersea cable routes in the North Atlantic and the Baltic Sea. This is not espionage in the traditional sense. This is mapping. You map something when you intend to use that map. Since 2022, 4 submarine cables have been cut or damaged in the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. 2 were attributed to ship anchors. Accidental damage. 2 remain under investigation. The investigators have not publicly identified a cause. NATO calls this hybrid warfare infrastructure targeting. It is happening. The perpetrators have not been conclusively identified. The cables were repaired. The vulnerability remains. China's approach to undersea cables is different from Russia's. Russia maps, China builds. Chinese state-linked companies, primarily HMN Technologies, formerly Huawei Marine Networks, have built or are building cables connecting China to Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and South America. The United States and its allies have blocked Chinese companies from connecting to American landing stations, so the Chinese cables connect to everyone else. What does this mean strategically? It means China is building a parallel internet infrastructure that does not depend on Western-owned cables. If China ever chose to isolate itself from the Western internet, or if the West ever chose to isolate China, China has the infrastructure to maintain connectivity with most of the developing world. The West would lose access to whatever Chinese cables reach. 2 internets are being built. The split has already begun. In 2013, documents released by Edward Snowden revealed that the NSA and British GCHQ had been intercepting data directly from submarine cables for years. The program was called Upstream. The agencies tapped the cables at landing stations, the points where the cables come ashore. This revealed 2 things simultaneously. First, the Western intelligence community knew exactly where the cables were, how they worked, and how they could be accessed. Second, If Western agencies could tap them, so could anyone else with similar capabilities. The cables were not protected then. They are not significantly better protected now. The agencies that know the most about the cable's vulnerability are the same agencies that used that vulnerability for their own intelligence collection. The NSA used the cable's vulnerability. Russia is mapping the cables. The cables are still unprotected. How do you protect a cable that runs for thousands of miles at the bottom of the ocean? You can't patrol it. You can't station a warship over every segment. You can't put sensors along the entire length. What exists? Repair ships that can fix a cut cable in approximately 2 to 4 weeks. What does not exist? Any credible military deterrent against a nation that decides to cut a cable covertly. The deterrence is not military. The deterrence is attribution. If you cut a cable and the world knows you cut it, there are diplomatic and economic consequences. But if you cut a cable and make it look like an anchor or a fishing trawler or a geological event, the deterrence disappears. 2 of the Baltic cables have not been attributed. Somebody cut them. The world does not officially know who. There is a common response to the submarine cable vulnerability. What about satellites? What about Starlink? Starlink is real. SpaceX's satellite constellation provides genuine internet access to areas that cables don't reach. But Starlink's total capacity is approximately 1% of what the undersea cable network carries. You cannot route 99% of global internet traffic through the 1% solution. There is no backup plan that is anywhere near adequate. The 7 episodes of this series have mapped 7 hidden systems: minerals, shipping lanes, drug routes, military bases, criminal networks, rare earth elements, and now the physical infrastructure of the internet itself. Each system is more critical than most people know. Each system is more vulnerable than the people who depend on it realize. If the only thing protecting the cables that carry 99% of the internet is the hope that no one cuts them in a way that can be attributed, what exactly is the plan?